So welcome on board, Mr. Arif Siddiqui. We are glad to have you for the interview in SSMB magazine. My first question to you is, having such a huge experience in the warehousing industry, what is your take on the Indian warehousing sector?
Okay, Andre, thanks very much. So first of all, this is an extremely exciting time for supply chain professionals and warehousing professionals. In fact, this overall has been a very, very exciting 2 years, especially for this industry where the growth has been phenomenal. And regardless of whether it is the pandemic or the demonetization or GST or any other macroeconomic factors that have generally affected other industries, this is one industry that probably has proven to be isolated from any hurdles or any macroeconomic factors and has been constantly growing. So it is an exciting time for everybody who is related to the warehousing sector. Specifically, I would say that the government also has been quite, I would say, focused in trying to improve and pave the way for this sector by bringing in all various policies, by bringing in the policies regarding discounting of the warehouse receipts, recognizing the logistics sector as a sector of preference and giving it an industry, I would say, recognition. And in my opinion, this exciting time will continue for a long period. The other point that I would like to probably bring forth here is that as far as the growth is concerned, the growth by way of investments that have been made in this particular sector, especially a lot of foreign players have got in terms of private equity investments. These investments are not small investments, but they are in billions of dollars of worth of investment that has been done, as a result of which there has been a lot of organized players that have got into this sector. And that has actually changed the whole level playing field and the canvas overall. This happens in every industry that gets a lot of foreign equity, which gets proper funding. And therefore, we are able to see national players who have developed and built standard warehouses and upmarket warehouses all around the markets where distribution needs to sit and reside in the country. Which means almost all the 7 to 8 metropolitan cities, more than 8 to 10 of the top B class cities has seen not only mushrooming but very fast growth, of large logistics parks. And this has also changed the paradigm, the thinking paradigm of the local players, the regional players, who have seen these buildings come in and also seen that there has been a long queue up of quality occupiers in these buildings, where they have been able to get a premium on the rentals. This has actually encouraged a lot of the small and the regional players also. So the whole ecosystem has developed, not only the ecosystem related to high-end, top-end developers, but also the middle end and the lower end developers who have been forced to look at organized development, legalized development, and standardized development. So therefore, with this change in paradigm, the whole warehousing sector has seen and will continue to see a very, very large growth. Lastly, on this question, Andre, one important thing that also has happened is that most of the warehouses that were developed or built were built approximately 10 to 15 years back. So from RCC buildings, the sector shifted to steel buildings or pre-engineered steel buildings. Okay, and once that happened, most of the people were actually developed their own designs, developed their own format, their own building types, sizes. There was no standard size. And that was one generation of, of development, evolution. However, after 20 years or 25 years of having done that, most of these buildings have either by way of their location have come into residential areas, and because that has happened, the or the buildings have got old, as a result of which new buildings are required, or these buildings have become old, they are obsolete, they have lived their life, and so forth. Therefore, now the whole new evolution of the second generation or the third generation has evolved, and that is also creating a huge amount of growth. So there is organic growth, there is shift-based growth that is happening from I would say lands that have converted from industrial to or agricultural to residential, and therefore the shift has taken place. There's been organic growth that has taken place because sizes are becoming larger and demand has grown up. So accumulatively, the whole growth looks very, very exciting and extremely promising. So yes, I agree with you that there's a big opportunity that exists, and several such opportunities will continue to exist.
Yes. So as you said,
Yes.
you already spoke about the growth. I wanted to ask you, what do, as per the current scenario of warehousing industry, is expected to have
Hello.
a massive. Hello, you can hear me? Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a. I could not hear you for some time. You can
Okay.
now.
I'll just repeat the question. As I was saying, as per the current scenario, the warehousing industry is expected to have a massive growth. So, what kind of development and growth do you foresee in the future?
So as I mentioned to you that the growth is not going to change. I mean, the growth will continue to remain exponential for the next 3 to 5 years. But what will happen in terms of evolution? So one is growth, one is adding more boxes, more space, more warehouses, more buildings. A lot of steel will get consumed by virtue of these new pre-engineered buildings that are going to come up. Uh, Now there is going to be design growth related to evolution of design. Uh, People will start looking at very tall buildings, because land prices are going to be high. And when land prices are going to be high, the per square foot price of construction, or rather delivering the product, is going to be high. And once that is high, the rentals are going to be high. Rentals are going to increase. So direct impact on rentals would mean per square foot price increasing. And therefore you will be left with no other option but to use the volume of the warehouse and the heights of the warehouse. So one is going to be, now there's going to be a shift, from just developing boxes to looking at good design. That's the next step that's going to happen. Efficient designs. There are going to be sector specific logistics parks that probably will develop. So you will see chemical warehouses which are specifically designed for chemical storage, because they will have to take care of all the hazardous aspect of the chemical. They will have to take care of good handling and safe handling, etc., in their designs. So there will be specific designed warehouses for specific sector. There will be warehouses which will be only catering to the e-commerce sector, which is a complete different characteristics or a different breed, by itself. It has its own nuances, it has its own requirements, which are far different from a normal consumer durable or an apparel warehouse requirement as such, or an FMCG warehouse requirement per se. So you will have these specific sector-wise logistics parks that will develop and will start getting occupied by industry sectors which pertain to specific requirements. Uh, there is also going to be standardization that will happen within these sectors. That's the next thing that will happen, is that you will have you will not have one warehouse standing at 14 meters, the other warehouse standing at 16 meters, the fourth warehouse, somebody feels that I should make a little bigger warehouse, so he ends up making a 70. I mean, warehouses will have to get some sort of standardization in terms of aspect ratio, in terms of heights, in terms of openings, in terms of docks, in terms of plinth heights, in terms of external condition. The other important thing that will happen that you will see happening in the mass development sector will be emphasis on the exterior of the warehouse, which is basically on the logistics element of the warehouse. Uh, they will today there is very little brain time and money spent on the exterior of the warehouse because the the effort is to do as much ground coverage as possible because that's where the money lies, because you don't charge for open area, you charge for the covered area. So therefore the effort is to see, how can I cover as much ground as possible and leave the challenge of turning vehicles and maneuvering of the vehicles and the traffic, etc., to the tenants at a later date, But now what is going to happen is that there is also going to be a lot of impetus and lot of focus, on the external development and the planning of warehouses. So, which will mean understanding of types of vehicles that are going to come, understanding the types of vehicles that are going to be on the outbound side, understanding the yard sizes, the truck terminal requirements, the requirements of drivers who are coming into the logistics parks. So a lot of thought will now have to start going on the functional side of the warehouse, and we as an organization that's exactly what our expertise is. As Coign Consulting, our expertise is to understand the functional element of warehousing and logistics, and then using the functional requirements to design logistics parks, individual warehouses, and also designing the intra logistics, the internal layouts of the warehouses from a functional perspective. It is not going to be simple architectural requirement. It's going to be, the future is going to be about planning the warehouse layouts and then designing from inside outside rather than from outside in. So the functional use of the warehouses will have to be determined, and you will have to find the highest common multiple or the highest common factor that will suit different categories of industries, so that even if you are developing warehouses on a speculative basis, you don't get them wrong, you get them right, that it takes care of the needs of various industry sectors at the same time, because built to suit warehouses are in many cases are extremely specific. Today most of the demand of built to suit, a requirement to, or the specifications that our customers are given are actually not so-called built to suit. They're basically standards, good standards. Because those standards are not available, the developer, or sorry, the occupier prints out a large list and says, this is what I want, because he feels that the developer doesn't know what he needs or what he needs to build. But subsequently, most of these specifications are going, which are currently written in build to suit, 85 of those percent or 90% of those specifications are going to get standardized. Okay. And that will then lead to a lot of warehouses being built on a speculative basis. The time of availability will reduce, and therefore there will be much more stock available for quick occupation. Occupiers will not have to wait for a very long time for their build to suit to come up, because that will be available as a standard warehouse. Those specs will be available as a standard warehouse, and only which are real build to suit, very, very specific to your requirement and probably not specific to anybody else or not a part of the highest common factor. Those are the ones that probably will get into the build to suit side, and that can take time, but the mass will get standardized and will be good quality stuff that will be available. So that's what my take is on your second question.
Next, what I wanted to ask you is, how does Coign Consulting plan to contribute to the logistics supply and supply chain in the coming years?
Plan to contribute, I would say we have been contributing for the past 15 years of our existence. The main purpose of my setting up this organization when I did in 2005, after I served one of India's leading 3PL companies, AFL Logistics, which is now FedEx. We were the pioneers in setting up this entire 3PL business in India way back in 1990, 91. And since then, since Coign Consulting was started in 2005, uh, our entire effort has been marrying function to design. uh, I've always stated this in various lectures of mine, that warehouses are not architectural buildings. These are buildings which are functional. They're supposed to deliver efficiency, productivity, effectiveness, scalability. And all this can only be done if you understand processes inside the warehouse. Processes, inward processes, your quality control processes, your storage processes, your outward processes, pick pack processes, etc., etc. And unless and until you understand what is the level of efficiency that I need, what is the productivity per person that I'm looking for, what is the turnaround time that I need this entire infrastructure needs to provide me to be able to handle the number of vehicles, what is the type of performance of the floor that I need, what is the equipment I'm going to use on this, and what are the stresses that the equipment is going to put on the floor, what type of storage system am I going to install. So Coin Consulting, in the various, our contribution has been in creating good specifications which are functionally integrated. Good warehouse building specifications. From the past 14, 15 years, we have been designing upmarket, upstandard, best-in-class, so-called A grade or A plus grade warehouses and specifications for the past 15, 20 years now. Okay. And our design concepts are completely based on the function that is executed inside the warehousing facility. We create geometries that improve the productivity of people, productivity of machinery. We master plan such that we are able to optimize the capacity in the warehouse. Okay, our layouts provide scalability, and that is so. If efficiency, productivity, capacity optimization, and scalability are the key contributions that we provide to the industry and in the warehouses as such. When we do the intra-warehouse layout after the master planning is completed, and some of these customers, prospective tenants, come to us and say that we would like you to also do the interior fit-out design for us. There we get more intriguingly involved into these customer-specific processes. We help them in augmenting the processes. We help them in improving their entire process flows, both flow of man, material, and machine. These three flows. We investigate into and interrogate their existing as-is processes, and based on that, we look at all the pitfalls, the loopholes, and the pits which need to be improved and improvised. We also help them in improving their overall fit-out, existing fit-outs. Maybe by virtue of improving capacity, we look at their storage systems. We then help them in changing these storage systems, or rather amalgamating some new storage systems with the old and slowly phase the old out, looking at the capex capability and the viability from a business perspective. So we help organizations in not only looking at it from an economic standpoint, not only from a viability standpoint, but also from an operational standpoint, which helps them improve their overall service level from these warehouses. And our understanding of warehouse operations, our understanding of warehouse processes, our understanding of the people, of the mentality of the people and the psychology of the warehouse worker for the past 30 years that I've been in this business, I've been serving the warehouses, is something which helps in contributing to the entire design process. And that's how our designs are set to be more effective and are considered, to be extremely efficient and productive. So that's our contribution to the industry. Another point that comes to my mind, is that on the automation side, today, as things become more and more complex, as sizes become large of warehouses, as processes become more intriguing, more complex and many in number inside the warehouse. Now the warehouse is no more just a godown. It's not a storage space. It's a space where a lot of processes take place. Okay. So it's like by itself, it's a processing center. It's a fulfillment center. It's a distribution center. So there's a lot of activity happening in the warehouse. Earlier, warehouses used to be about 10, 20, 25 people. There used to be warehouses of 10,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet. Today, you have warehouses which are small warehouses which are 100,000 square feet, 1 lakh square feet, which are considered to be average size warehouses, and large warehouses which are 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakh square feet, single box warehouses. Imagine the number of people working there. You have 500 to 600 to 700 people. Warehouses with connected load capacity of 1 megawatt. Imagine the amount of equipment that is installed there, the amount of lighting that is happening there, the amount of machinery that is operating out there. When 1 megawatt of power load, connected power load, that's huge. So you can imagine that a warehouse is now nothing but a very different type of a factory, which is fulfilling requirements and demands of customers and orders of customers, millions of customers every month. So this complexity leads to the requirement of automation. Automation brings in a lot of challenges of by itself. It has challenges in terms of good flow, because automation can't be installed unless you have good floor and good level. Okay, because these are very sensitive machineries that are running on the floor. Fine. Automation can't operate if there isn't enough space, that is available. And automation also replaces one of the most mundane, non-value added activities that are being done by human capital, of just taking material there. So rather than 5 people employed in running trolleys from left to right and up and down, you can replace these by simple mechanization of conveyors. Put conveying system in place, without any intelligence. It just carries material from one point to the other point. You can add intelligence in these conveying systems and then call them automation, because then you are asking them to take some decisions. So sorting systems, diverting systems, etc., are then you get the automation in place. So the larger the sizes of warehouses, the complex processes that you start engaging in the warehouses or involving in the warehouses leads to the need, of automation in there. And these buildings, automation requires certain types of buildings, certain specifications, that need to be applied to these buildings for automation to give its best result. So that is the other thing where we add a lot of value by understanding what can be automated and what should not be automated or may not be required to be automated, to get you the right balance between mechanization and automation. Is a big contribution we feel that we're able to bring to the table.
Yes. So the next question what I wanted to ask you is, according to you, what are the concerned areas in the logistics sector that requires attention and needs to be improved upon?
That's a very good question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but the camera is off. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Now
Things up. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I lost your voice in between. If you can just repeat the question, something went. I don't know what, some technology.
Okay, sure. I'll do that. No problem. So what I was saying is, according to you, what are the concerned areas in the logistics sector that requires attention and needs to be improved upon?
Concern areas. Yeah. So the concern areas, obviously, yes, one is the government support. I think is something that we have been blabbering about for several years. Recognition of the warehousing. I will use the word warehousing sector is very important. Land availability of land and demarcated land, because land costs are very, very high now. I think the government needs to intervene and provide for a proper demarcated area for logistics warehouses, and provide the land at some sort of beneficial rates or appropriate rates to keep the sector alive. Otherwise, there will come a time when it will become very difficult to afford warehousing, and ultimately the whole business and trade will get affected. I mean, the industries will get affected because land prices will be very high and rentals will go haywire. Not that they are very cheap at this moment, but still. Second is many cities in India, like I would say Maharashtra, for example, Gujarat, for example, do not have proper shaped lands just because they are non-contiguous. You know, I mean, these lands reforms do not take place at the right time, and therefore have extremely haphazard boundary lands, as a result of which there's a lot of wastage that takes place in terms of ground coverage. So that is one very specific area where I think government can can look at these areas. Secondly, wherever land is cheap, connectivity is bad. The road connectivity is bad. So that's one specific area where I think a lot of work needs to be done. However, what is important also, you know, is the requirement needs to be very clearly specified by the tenants, all tenants. See, uh, what is available is actually proportional to what is being demanded. Okay, if you're not willing to demand good specs and you're not willing to pay good price for good specs, fine, good specifications are never going to be available. Okay, it's very clear that if you pay suboptimally for infrastructure, you get suboptimal infrastructure. You know, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. That's what is going to happen. Okay, so therefore it's very important that from the customer's perspective, this is recognized. Third thing that needs to happen is that to the 3PL sector, customers who are availing third-party logistics services, who in turn hire good warehouses, the customers of 3PLs should be willing to pay the third-party logistics companies a good remuneration so that they can look for good quality infrastructure. They can provide for good quality infrastructure, which will then lead to proper productivity and efficiency and capacity optimization. Fine. So I think temperaments need to change, and the way we look at service providers needs to change. On the other hand, service providers also need to look like specialists. If you don't look like a specialist as a service provider, you're going to get peanuts. The customer is not going to respect you as a specialist. In order to be respected as a specialist, you have to behave like one. You have to look like one. You have to talk like one. You have to understand. Your knowledge has to be like one. Then only you become a specialist. So I think the market development, you know, in terms of when I say market, I mean the supplier and the consumer, both. That's what forms a market. They both need to mature. And I think the first step will have to be taken by third-party logistics service providers and immediately by the customers, that they end up looking at the 3PL as a specialist and then are willing to pay a fair price for the services that are being provided. You know, otherwise you will find damages will continue, pilferages will continue, leaking roofs will continue to happen because you're not paying the right price, you know, for good infrastructure. So this is one paradigm change, in my opinion, that needs to happen. The earlier changes that I have mentioned about is in terms of specialized warehouses. I don't think that we have sufficient cold storages. I don't think we have sufficient air-conditioned warehouses. I don't think that we have sufficient open yard warehousing, sufficient, I'm talking about systematic and organized. There's no organized ambient store warehouses, etc. You know, so these, I think, you know, sectorial warehouse requirements need to be also looked at, and this will add to a big, in my opinion, a big change. Yeah.
So
You
the
have
next
something to
one
say?
is, yes. How does Coign Consulting stand out from its contemporaries?
How does Coign Consulting stand out from its contemporaries? To be very honest, we haven't had enough time to look at our contemporaries. You know, I don't think I am aware of many contemporaries which are in this particular field. Yes, we keep hearing of a few names here and there. Uh, I think it's a huge market. There's a lot of demand at this moment for uh, good design capabilities, uh, good knowledge capabilities, good thought leaders. There's a big demand, and and also there's a lot of shortage of people who are able to cut across industry segments and have the experience of working for several industry segments together as one consulting organization. So much as I respect everybody's thoughts. We're not the one company that does everybody's job. So I'm sure there are many others who are doing jobs for others. Uh, we are constantly trying to improve. We don't want to remain laid back, and we would not like to underestimate capacities of contemporaries at all. We are constantly wanting to improve. However, we want to be pragmatic. We are we always want to remain practical. Uh, we have never been theoreticians because we are practitioners. Our background is that we come from a practitioner's perspective. So we would always like to remain, our thought processes, our entire entire outlook is something which we would like to continue to make sure is from a practitioner's viewpoint. We would like to appreciate and put our ears to the ground as far as the warehouse supervisor and warehouse manager is concerned. And therefore, we would like to also remain in touch and abreast with all possible new age technologies, contemporary technology, contemporary machinery, contemporary storage systems. However, we don't believe in compromising on the economic viability of warehouse operations. We are not here to you know, uh, induce technology and induce machinery in the warehouse at the cost of compromising with the supply chain profitability. For us, supply chain profitability is epitome, and as profitability keeps improving, we would always encourage our customers to keep adding more capital from all the capital that is accrued, by virtue of supply chain profitability, to invest in warehouses and logistics technologies as they keep accruing more and more money. So that's what we feel, and I'm sure most of the contemporaries also would agree with what I'm saying and would like to follow this particular policy.
So the next question, what I wanted to ask is, what role do you think steel plays in the construction of logistic parks and warehouses?
Oh, I would say that steel has been a blessing for this industry. I think it plays an extremely vital role in conceptualizing, opens up huge amount of possibilities. The thought process change that has happened in the past 20 years has been phenomenal. It's been a complete, not only multi paradigm shifts have taken place in what buildings used to be earlier and what are the possibilities with steel. uh, the warehouses today, you can't think. PEB has become synonymous to warehouse, to a warehouse building. The heights, the widths, the spans, the reduced number of columns, all this is a blessing of steel being used in the warehousing sector, and designs using steel buildings have eased out, and created a lot of freedom at the floor of the warehouse by reducing these, you know, fat columns in between, otherwise which were acting as constant hurdles, and impediments in the overall free flow of material and free flow of machine. Okay, so steel has played a very vital role in improving efficiency, capacity, and productivity. That is one thing I should completely compliment steel for. Steel opens a huge, I would say, huge band and rainbow of opportunities in how you can change the designs internally, how you can use larger spans of mezzanines, You can create tall buildings. You can create large spans, column-free spans, etc. How you can use sheeting to clad the buildings. However, one thing that I would always say as far as the pre-engineered buildings are concerned is more to do with the cladding and the roofing. You know, I think pre-engineered buildings still need to master the act of providing leak-proof buildings. That is one challenge that needs to be addressed, especially when it comes to standing seam roofs with additional elements like skylights. The moment you put standing seam roofs with additional elements like skylights, for that matter, or daylights, or or monitors, we find that it disintegrates, the sanctity of this particular warehouse, of the roof. I'm sorry, of the roof, and somehow these multi elements do not still have a detailing that ensures complete waterproofing. So buildings, no matter how, whoever is the manufacturer, would be the top or the bottom, ring of manufacturers. But we continue to find that, this is a weak area where standing seam roofs, still are not completely waterproof. And there is some pain that customers go through as far as the steel roofs are concerned. And that's where I feel effort needs to be spent, and customers or other manufacturers need to focus on, should kindly take this as a feedback and work on resolving this very big issue, on steel.
Next is how do you think can the government help in boosting the warehousing sector?
So I mentioned this, the challenges that the sector is facing. One is in terms of land reforms, which is very, very important. Availability of legal property of land, availability of contiguous land, clear demarcation of zones, calling these zones as industrial or warehousing zones, which then helps interested parties to come and invest. There needs to be some regulation of the cost. The costs need to be regulated at the lower side, or some sort of control needs to be done in terms of pricing also, which is very, very important. Then availability of all the utilities and the services like water, road, electricity, all the services, availability of services which will make the warehousing easy, or other operations easy, because warehouses are no more about 5 or 6 bulbs. It's huge consumption of electricity also taking place in a single warehouse. Okay, warehouses are not about 5 people. It's about 100, 200, 500, 1,000 people working sometimes in large warehouses. So huge human resource. A connectivity to these warehouses needs to be looked at, and therefore there needs to be proper public transport, that connects to these parks, bringing the local state transport buses, or connectivity of trains, to these parks. So electricity, water, roads, and connectivity, both in terms of telecom as well as connectivity by road for passenger transport, public transport, are the 4 or 5 things that are very, very important. Apart from the earlier 3 or 4 things that I said in terms of helping the developers to get proper land, diverted land, and proper shape of land, which can then improve the overall ground coverage and also improve the productivity and the cost element that otherwise gets a lot of wastage, on the land. So that's my take as far as the government is concerned. There are a lot of other policies that we've been talking about in terms of warehouse the sector. Standardization is another thing that is important. There needs to be standard rules with regards to fire safety, which is regards to fire safety, for example. standard rules in terms of aspect ratios. Sometimes people just go ahead and make a 200-meter by 300-meter warehouse and say, that we have a 600 square feet facility. It's not going to work. You just can't have an aspect ratio which is so large, so skewed. There needs to be some standardization that the government needs to also look at. Certification programs in terms of certifying warehouses, to gold standard and silver standard and platinum standard, etc., so that it encourages everybody to reach that standard, and invest money in the right quality of buildings, and in terms of functional standards, and not in terms of aesthetic beauty. I'm talking about, and talking in terms of functionality. So organizations, associations, and maybe government organizations, associations need to work towards these aspects, which are more strategic to the development of the sector.
To know, what is your success mantra, sir?
Success mantra. I'm not sure that we are completely successful at this stage. Yes, but I think we have tried to create an impact. Our main, I would say, reason of popularity, or of having made some mark in the industry, I would say, is because of our understanding of the warehouse operations. Functional integration to infrastructure has been our key success mantra. Understanding of warehouse processes, understanding of the human capital, of the human psychology, how people work in the warehouse, what are important aspects that need to be kept in order to reduce costs, understanding of the cost aspect of cost per ton, cost per square feet, cost of ownership of a warehouse. These understandings for the past of being in this industry from an ops perspective, and using our operations knowledge and our understanding of operations, is something, domain expertise, as I would call it, in terms of operations domain expertise and the business domain expertise, is what has made us successful in delivering great designs of warehouses and fulfillment centers. That's, I believe, what we've been told, and we strongly feel is our success mantra.
That would be all, sir. Thank you so much for such a knowledge sharing interview. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.